From Omaha, Nebraska to New York City. From planet Earth to extraterrestrial life in space. A podcast with no equal, engaged in unconventional warfare through your speakers and headphones. This is a show about embracing the suck, conquering your demons, and finding God in the face of adversity. Chris Tonto Peranto.
Switch is on. Motherfucker, I'm gonna shoot you in the face.
Ian Scotto.
You know, Ian and I have been dating for a long time.
You are now tuned into the Battle Line Podcast.
Switch is on, Battle Line Podcast. If you happen to be watching on YouTube, most of you guys listen. You can see that I'm not in my usual location. I'm at my parents' house because
I'm wearing my anti-boyfriend shirt because my daughter's getting here. I can't see it.
Yeah, stand up so you can see the whole thing.
Here you go. Here you go. Guys, can you see it now?
Dad's against boyfriend. That's funny.
Yeah, I got my dad shirt on because my daughter's getting that age. She's getting to be a teenager. And yeah, boyfriends, I don't envy you guys coming to my house to pick my daughter up. I'll be cleaning my 40 cal waiting for y'all because I got a 40 and a shovel and you won't be missed. Believe me.
I think my sweatshirt might be cooler though.
That is a pretty cool
Transformers Decepticon.
That's a Transformer Decepticon one.
With the Japanese writing.
Yeah, is that an original one? Dude, you need to say that. That's worth some money.
No. There's a site that reproduces.
I was like, holy shit! If that's an original, because I love I still got the old Optimus Prime. Even before that, the toys that were before the Transformers used to buy. They were the precursor, and I still got a few of those. And I watch it. Do you ever watch the show at the toy? It's called he goes around and buys toys, and it's used to be on History Channel. Now I think he does on some of the Netflix stuff, or maybe it's Hulu. But man, it's some of those toys. Like, holy shit, I got those toys, and they're worth thousands of dollars. And
you still have them?
I still have them somewhere in a box. Yeah, that's the thing is I played with them though. I didn't take care of them, but I played.
All right, yeah.
So
they still might be worth something.
No, they still are. And on my old Star Wars ones, I wish I would have had the original. That one, the Boba Fett that used to have that you could shoot a missile, and they stopped making it because, of course, in the U.S., you shoot your eye out, kids, so they quit making it. But that prototype is worth like tens of thousands of dollars, and I think I've got not the prototype. I've got one somewhere, but yeah, I love that stuff, and so that's why I said that shirt. I swear I saw that shirt on one of the shows. I'm like, man,
yeah, this was just this site Culture Kings. They reproduce they've got and it's official that they've got Nintendo stuff and Street Fighter,
cool.
and I just saw this and I was like, this looks awesome, so I bought it. But
that's cool.
Yeah, as you guys could see, I'm at my parents because I'm having HVAC issues at the Connecticut place, and truthfully, who knows how long I'll even be there? I really don't know.
Is that because it's so cold? Is that
no? I don't. Well, it's very cold today, but I've been having issues for the past week, so it's just been extremely noisy to the point where I can't sleep there.
Really?
And it's funny because and I think of actually things that you've told me and other people have told me with the situational awareness, because my mom will be like, why don't you just put earplugs in? And for me, God forbid anything happens, I might not be as vigilant as you, but I want to hear if something is going on. I think just having some of that vigilance when I hear something going on and off all times of the night, it's keeping me up.
Yeah, it keeps you.
So
up.
It's I got to get this thing fixed. And for some people it might be minor, but for me it's a big deal because, like I said, I just the same way if someone were to open the door as someone living by myself, I would wake up immediately to that, and I want to wake up immediately to that. God forbid something were to happen. So I'm getting it fixed. I leased this place from February to February. I'm going to stay a few more months, but then after that, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Connecticut. Maybe Florida, maybe back to New York.
Maybe get back to
thinking
Florida.
It all through.
Man, Florida's, I was just there, last week teaching a course in Jacksonville. Yeah. And it's still, bro. I even though I hate traveling, I hate flying. I hate it. I just like being at home. When you get off in Florida, everything just feels good. I don't know what it is, and it's just. And I remember it was, and it was 70 degrees in Jacksonville, and we're, that's more northeast Florida, so it's not even the the hot part, the Everglades, Naples and West Palm and Miami, and it's still perfect. It was 65, 70 degrees. And I remember the ATF, because we were training in the ATF special response team, their SWAT team, and the Jacksonville operational team, or the JSO, Jacksonville Special Operations Team, or their SWAT team. And I remember the head guy, the ATF guy, great guy, his name's Damien. And Damon, it's Damien. And he said, yeah, Florida's perfect. We got 3 days of spring, 3 months of spring and 9 months of summer. I was like, shit, man, why didn't I move here? So I still think you should. I think you have
I'm heavily debating it. I mean, I only moved to Connecticut because it was close by. And, you know, people ask me, oh, how do you like Connecticut? And the truth is, anything social I do, I'm back on Long Island. I'm back in New York because I'm an hour away, and that's where my friends are, and that's where there's stuff going on. But anyway, I'm excited for this episode because unfortunately, you know, it's been 10 years since the passing of Chris Kyle. We've mentioned Chris Kyle on the show before, but neither of us knew him. So I figured getting someone on like Scott McEwen, who had like a great relationship with him, wrote American Sniper, it'd be great to get like the retrospective from him. But another passing that I mentioned last week and that I figured I'd get your take on, unfortunately, just a couple weeks ago, was the passing of Army Ranger Joe Kapp, a guy who really just heroically lost his leg in combat and got right back into combat. And to me, man, that is so indicative of what the Army Rangers are about.
It epitomizes the Ranger creed, you know, 100%, and then some, you know, and I can see, you know, it's tough enough to just get on with your life when you lose an appendage. You know, if when we have Matty Waters on again, Sergeant Waters,
Matt Waters, Mike
Schlitz on, you know, that's a big deal. And for him to actually Roger back up, get himself back to where he could perform and actually even pass the PT test standards and then the Ranger standards with one leg and then go back into combat says something about his intestinal fortitude. It just, you know, he's a true Ranger. I mean, I'm only a half Ranger compared to that guy. And I'm gonna be serious. That's just that is unbelievable to me. That to do that, because you know, I ripped my quad and I saw how hard it was to rehabilitate this thing, and I'm still rehabilitating. And it's just a tear. I didn't lose my leg. I can't even imagine him doing that. And then the therapy that he had to go through to rehabilitate just to get to a point that he could wear a prosthetic and then actually perform physically with that prosthetic leg. And then even having the want that I need to go back in. Obviously, there was something he felt he didn't finish, which, you know, I get that, because remember when we had Rob Jabber on, where he said, you know, he got blown up, just probably the biggest I think it was the biggest car bomb in Iraq's history since the dump truck bomb in 2004. And he just didn't feel like he had finished on his terms. You know, he says, man, I wanted to stay in. Wasn't my time. I didn't want to leave, but I've made the best of it. Of course, he has his limo company. He's very successful in Michigan now. Rob is awesome. But I suspect that's probably how Kapp felt. It was, man, I didn't leave on my terms. I had to leave. I had to get out. And I get that. I understand that. You know, that was even hard for me to say, okay, well, we're going to have to bite the bullet and quit to tell this truth that it's really not my time to leave. And I dealt with it in my own ways. But in his case, you know, that still was kind of my choice. You know, he didn't, when you get in a traumatic incident like that, where you lose an appendage, you lose an eye, leg, lose hearing, your auditory skills, you have some physical malfunction, I should call it, or an injury. For all you woke people out there, we don't have many of you, but for those that may get offended if I call it something else, for an injury, then it's something that you don't have that choice. You know, it's like, I didn't make this choice to walk into I mean, yeah, I was there, but it wasn't my choice to lose this leg. How can I get back in? And that drive, that just epitomizes his mental toughness. But of course, as you guys have probably even seen on some of my episodes, or, you know, say something and it'll trigger an emotional response where it probably shouldn't, but it still does. We have those hidden injuries, and him, Kapp, of course, especially did it. And we also, I wanted to, because we didn't talk about him before. He wasn't a great friend. I knew him and I knew his wife, Casey. But he was a great Ranger. From everybody that served with them, Neil Curry's another one who lost that inner injury battle that we all come back with. And Yeah, we can yell and scream and we can do everything we can to tell guys, hey, it's going to be okay. You can get through it. But in my own experience, it wasn't anybody else telling me I could get through it, or I served honorably, or that what I did in combat or what I had to do to come home, it was okay. Even my pastor, I talked to him on time to time. It was me fixing it myself. I had to do it. I had to be the one to say, okay, I'm good. I can get through this. And that's, I guess, a battle where he lost, and and Neil as well, where they lost, and that's not a bad thing, guys. And I hope you don't think I'm talking down about it at all.
I do always want to make this clear, and I made it clear in the episode last week with Max Mullen, which you weren't on. As far as I know, we do not officially know the cause of death of Joe Kapp.
Sure.
So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. I mean, I know that there's a lot that could be implied. The fact that there's no cause of death listed, you could kind of draw some conclusions possibly, but I just want to throw that out there, especially
that's good.
Members of the family might be listening, and also I don't know if that's the case. We could be totally wrong, because none of us know for sure.
And I apologize if I'm speculating, guys. I just going through that and trying to even put a bullet through my head. And I don't like to talk about it anymore. I mean, I've talked about it enough, and people use it for inspiration now. And I think it's gone too far, but I want to put that out there, that I've been through those dark places, and I still go there every once in a while. I want to put that out, that it's not an easy thing to overcome. And yeah, whether he did or didn't, whether Neil, it was put out that he did. So I'm pulling Neil, and I think Neil needs to be honored as well. Neil Curry needs to be honored, because he was a tremendous, from all accounts that I knew, and even the little bit that I did know, and we had a what's the word, like a social friendship. It was, hey dude, what's going on? Hey, you're good, you're solid. And Casey, of course, his wife, I had a social relationship with that entire family. Him and her, getting on Neil is that I know he did, and I know he was going through those demons, and it's sometimes those are the hardest battles to win. It's not the appendages, not the lost arms and legs. It's the demons that come inside that will always be there, and sometimes they beat us. And not say again with Kapp if that was the case or not. Regardless, on the plus side, he was an inspiration, or he still is an inspiration to anyone out there that's trying to overcome adversity. Because Jesus, man, losing a leg, actually going back into combat with the prosthetic leg, and unbelievable intestinal fortitude. And it's something that we can learn from, that we have, that everybody has that capability, not just him, not just because he was a Ranger, you, me, the person working at the supermarket down the road. Everybody has that capability to overcome those kinds of adversity, to overcome that physical adversity, if they want to, if they were willing to push themselves through a lot of discomfort. I know with my knee, a lot of discomfort for the therapy, and get back to whatever goal they set for themselves. I think the biggest thing with Kapp is that he set a goal to get back to, and that's one thing as far as Rangers as well. When Rangers set goals, they're going to make them. I've never met a Ranger that didn't make a goal that they set. Some took longer than others, but they always made it. And I think that says something for the Ranger battalions too, is that when they set a goal, when a Ranger from the 75th Ranger Regiment sets a goal, they're going to make it. And that's what he did. So if we can learn anything, not just the negative parts and the speculation of what took place and how, and him losing his life, but the positive of him, and everybody has that intestinal fortitude that they can reach those limits if they really want to. And if they're willing to deal with some discomfort, they can reach the pinnacle of whatever goal they set for themselves. I think he's a perfect example of that. And I think Neil is as well. Neil got out, and then he joined, we really don't speak of their names too much on this show, but the Black Rifle Coffee crew, and he joined them.
Had guys on.
I know, but
Luke Ryan's a good friend.
They're good guys. I just, their companies. That's I don't want to get sidetracked there. But he started his own gun range called Ready Gunner. They're in Utah, extremely successful. And then him and Casey opened a store, like a franchise of a Black Rifle Coffee store. And I think it was either Spanish Fork, Utah, or Pleasant Grove, Utah. I could be wrong. It was right in that area there. So he's another success story as well. I mean, coming back and getting into the business world and becoming successful. At first with his Ready Gunner, little, he gets these little cards that you could take out. They were like E&E cards, escape and evade cards that you could put in your wallet that had fish hooks and little knives. This was really cool. But then opened his own gun shop and his own gun range, and it took off. It blew up. So again, we all go, even when we think like we're doing well, we still have those things. Rangers, people that have served, SEALs, Marines, so forth. We still have those things in our head that we have to deal with every day. But once we set a goal and it's goal oriented, we're going to accomplish that goal. Even with all that adversity that we may be fighting off onto the side, we're still going to put 100%, 110% effort into whatever goal we want to reach. And Neil and Cap were perfect examples of that. It's just too bad that, war's hell, that they let some of their demons maybe creep in. But I get it. I've been there. I still go there every once in a while, and you have to fight them off. And that's just something that we signed up for. I have to say that if you signed up for the military and you signed up for Special Forces, SEALs, Rangers, Delta, whatever, PJs, we got Scotty that was in, you're going to go through something that's going to change your mental aspect on life. And it's just you're not going to be able to get rid of it. And, but that's what we signed up for. I'd say that, but that is so. And all your youngsters that if you're thinking about going in and going into special operations, being a force recon as well, I know I'm missing out somebody within the special operations community. So forgive me, guys. I'm sorry for all you trolls out there. Somebody will hit me up. But if you're deciding to do that, just know that your life will change, and you have to be strong physically, but even stronger mentally. And those things that you see are going to be amazing. And they're going to put smiles on your face, but you're also going to have those things that you see or do that put you at the lowest of the lows. And that's what you're signing up for. That's what it is. It's a constant roller coaster up and down. Just know that before you go in, before you make that decision. And if you know that going in, not saying you'll be easy to handle, but you'll be able to handle those ups and downs a lot easier than if you're not prepared mentally for it. Does that make sense? I guess so.
Yeah, so I mean, the thing with Joe Cap is you guys, you and Max Mullen definitely share a brotherhood and bond with him, even though you didn't meet him. I did get to meet Joe Cap really briefly. Really great guy. And yeah, the sad thing about it is the fact that I believe he has 2 sons, pretty sure of that. And like, I think the last thing he tweeted out was a picture of him and his young son at the Atlanta Braves game. And seeing stuff like that, man, it's just definitely really heartbreaking. So rest in peace, Joe Cap. And also, once again, I really don't mind saying that if there's any details that we do have wrong, if friends or family are listening, email us. Yeah, email us battlelinepodcast@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to get the story right. And then in terms of news, man, there wasn't really much to cover. And then last night, this hit the AP, and this has been the major thing really floating around, is this Chinese spy balloon that was found over Montana, basically over the Maelstrom Air Force Base and intercontinental ballistic missile fields. And I mean, the immediate reaction is like, why didn't we shoot this down right away? And I know Biden said that we're not going to shoot it down. I'm not going to act like I'm an expert on this type of thing, but what I will say is I think we've become way too complacent to both the influence of China and Russia. And I think they do an amazing job in terms of surveillance and spying, China in particular with TikTok. And I think the best take I've heard on this was actually I'm pulling out my phone because I saw it right before this, was from an Army author that we got to get on the show at some point, Brett Allen. But I mean, this was like the sarcastic way of putting it, but it's true. He wrote, "I'm so mad about China's spy balloon gathering intel on us. I think I'll make a TikTok about it." So, I mean, I think when we're willingly on apps that gather intel, and even US surveillance, right? When we have these, and I don't have them in my house, but these things like Siri or Alexa or all that are spying on American citizens, people are like way more willing. And I think a Chinese air balloon, spy balloon flying over Montana would really put people up in arms a lot more 10 years ago. Although I do think the response from people is kind of outrage, and a lot of outrage of why didn't we shoot this down? It makes us look weak. So I know you said you didn't hear about it. I know you don't really watch the news much, but over the past 12, 15 hours, this has been the big story. And when it goes up Monday, it'll be old news by now. But I mean, it's a big deal, I think.
Yeah, well, that is huge, especially over where it was at, and anything to me, that's an act of war. When you do something like that, you're spying on our defense systems. you're spying on them so you can take them out. That's what you're doing. You're doing your reconnaissance. So Joe and your admin staff and your SecDef, what's his name? Millie, Tilly, Philly, Billy, I don't know, whatever the hell his name is. You guys are freaking idiots. If you do not think that this is an act of war, and it is, because that's what we would do. That's what we do. Before we go and attack anything, we do our reconnaissance of it so we can put a mission together. That's part of your troop leading procedures there, studs. SecDef, Millie, Willie, whatever your name is. You should know this. You got a Ranger tab on you. I even think you're long tabbed. I think he was even Special Forces. I could be wrong. For all you Special Forces guys, feel free to correct me on that, because I obviously don't like the guy. I don't think he's a very good leader either. I think he's a terrible leader. But guys, this, and I didn't know it was that bad, Ian, until you texted to me. I was like, holy shit, are you kidding me? They saw it. They didn't do anything. We just lost round one. What it was. And yeah, what they are collecting intel so they can formulate an attack. That's what they're going to do. That's what it's for. So for us to not shoot it down, what the hell? I don't have an answer. I know when we first started the show, I talked a little about the agency and how when we were out there in different places of the world, that the bad guys, the terrorists, would work on our empathy. That was our weakness, was empathy and sympathy, because Americans have that. That's why that's what also makes us strong. That's why we don't go out and just indiscriminately shoot people. And if we have people in the military that do, guys on the other side will call them to the carpet, like we did on our show. Eddie Gallagher is a perfect example of that, where you can bite me, but still, to me, that was wrong. What happened? So, but that again, it can be used by our enemies as a weakness as well. And the terrorists did a great job at it. That's why they hid weapon systems in Afghanistan, in orphanages and schools and mosques, because we won't hit those things. Because
and I mean, the perfect example of that. And look, I think both sides have plenty of wrongdoing, but Israel and Palestine, I mean, that's like how it always goes. They're always hiding stuff in hospitals, the Palestinians, I'm saying, and they win the propaganda war because it'll be, look how many innocent civilians Israel killed, but they're targeting terrorists.
That's the perfect example. That is a perfect example and that's where the terrorists really got their modus operandi of how to hide stuff and where to put stuff and how to win the propaganda battle, was that the year's war with Israel and Palestine. And we can argue, and I still think the PLO or the Palestine, that's a terrorist organization. And many of the people that shot off that wasn't just Osama bin Laden, Hamas, they came from that. But anyway, what we're getting at is that as America, we can't continually, the wokeness, that we're going to offend somebody if we shoot their spy balloon down needs to be removed. All right.
Yeah. Well, the only reason I say I don't know enough, I don't know. There may be a reason we chose not to shoot it down, and I can't really form a full opinion within hearing this within a few hours. So I kind of would like to learn more. I mean, my immediate reaction is it should be shot down, but I also don't know enough. But I do think, we are way too tied to China. And the TikTok stuff, I mean, is way more serious than I think people realize. And that there's a reason TikTok, the way it's used here, is banned in China. And they're using the same technology in China to basically teach kids engineering and math and serious things. And then they use that technology here to basically have this propaganda of, I don't know what my gender is, and they're using it to basically make Americans weaker. I do believe. Well,
and it's working. It definitely is working. But it's something that can be corrected and can be fixed. But we got to take off these training wheels if we're going to offend people, or we're going to lose money. Take an example for Paramount Pictures, guys. Top Gun didn't bow down to the Chinese at all, and what happened? The biggest grossing movie. I know it's a movie, but still. Guys,
no, I think it's a perfect example. I think that's a great example.
Hey, we don't need to bow down to China. We don't. We need China. No, we don't. Yeah, we may go through some heartburn. We may not have the chips we need for our vehicles for a little while. We may not have cheaply made clothing. So who uses China? Does Nike or all that athletic? I don't know.
I mean, I feel like all these brands.
So maybe you're gonna have to spend a little bit more, and your CEOs won't be making as much money because you can't use their cheap labor. but we'll get better. We'll get more quality made products. That's for sure. And on the gun side, yeah, Vortex, stop using China to make a lot of your shit. Knock that shit off. And all the whole the gun world, all you guys. But
Well,
yeah,
I do want to get a, what were you
I
saying?
just want that we can, last thing, and we'll get into it because I do our reads. But if we don't, all that's going to do is bring more manufacturing back to the United States, which is what we need to do anyway, which is where we were at 10 years ago, which we were at 20 years ago. So it's a win-win. If we, my opinion, unless they were gathering intel from them, gathering intel on us, like there was something in there, if they were getting intel from computer systems that they were able to hack our intel organizations, there's no other reason to not shoot that thing down and screw China if we offend them. We don't need them, guys. I know people think we do. We don't need them. We can be just fine without them. All right, Ian, I'm off my soapbox, man.
Yeah, no, all good. I do want to get over to Scott McEwen. Really excited to talk with him. 10 years since the death of Chris Kyle. Yesterday, as we're recording, this was Chris Kyle Day. But before we do, Fort Scott Munitions sponsors every show. Fort Scott Munitions is a manufacturer of multi-federal patented solid copper and brass CNC spun ammunition that is designed to tumble upon impact in soft tissue, leaving devastating wound channels for faster bleed out and quicker incapacitation. This ammunition was originally developed to innovate and improve on the standard of military-grade ammunition design. It was found that not only did the TUI ammunition outperform competitors in the self-defense industry, but it quickly became apparent that it would be a top contender for hunters alike. With the ammunition being CNC spun, the tolerances are some of the tightest on the market, ensuring they receive the same results with each pull of the trigger. Fort Scott Munitions is available throughout privately owned businesses in all 50 states, as well, of course, at FSM.com. Very easy to remember, FSM.com. Use the promo code BATTLELINE and you're going to get 15% off your order. Only available to listeners of the Battleline podcast. Fort Scott Munitions is a proud supporter of Chris Peranto, Battleline Tactical, and the Battleline podcast. Once again, guys, FSM.com, promo code BATTLELINE, and you're going to get 15% off their merch, their ammo, all that great stuff. And of course, another sponsor of our show is Bubs Naturals, something that I know you use every day post-workout and workout recovery, whether it's coffee or, as I say, for me, a lot of times in this very cold weather we're about to have over these next few days, I'll make some hot chocolate, put some Bubs Naturals in there. You could use that mixture that they have, and it's great. Love it.
It has helped me with my recovery as far as the collagen protein goes, with my torn quadricep tendon and quad muscle. It definitely has helped me recover quicker. I just know the strength has come back, and I don't have a lot of those little nicks and pains that I think a lot of people that go through therapy do have. And I can attribute that to the collagen protein. But also with the MCT oil, that is a great pre-workout. It helps with my gut, so my ulcerative colitis stays in check. And then also, with the gummies, the apple cider gummies, that definitely helps keep me cleaned up. Yeah, keep me cleaned up. And they're just a tremendous company too. And their success says a lot about their integrity, not just within their product, but within their customer service and within all the extra stuff you get to with their podcasts that they do. Even on their own, they have professionals that come in and write up good emails that explains the benefits of collagen protein. And so you're getting a lot more than just the product, which by itself is worth 10 times the money that you're paying. But then you get all the extras especially if you sign up for their newsletters, and you get on their list of also offers that they come in every once in a while. So, and it supports Bub, and it supports the Glendora Memorial Foundation. So tremendous company, tremendous product. I swear by it. I will always use it. And also they give back to the GDMF, the Glendora Memorial Foundation, which, puts it over the top.
Absolutely, guys. So for 20% off all Bubs Naturals gear and products, including the collagen protein, the MCT oil powder, apple cider vinegar gummies, they got the coffee, they got other products too. Yeah, bubsnaturals.com. Use the promo code BATTLELINE and you're going to get 20% off. bubsnaturals.com, promo code BATTLELINE. With that, we're going to get over to Scott McEwen, co-author of American Sniper and so many other great books. Joining us for the first time is, first time on Battleline podcast, but truthfully, Scott, I feel like is a guy I've known for probably like a good 8 years. I mean, we've hung out in person. It's
10.
Yeah, possibly just about 10, I would say. It's been a really long time since I've known you, and Scott is a stand-up guy. So lawyer, author of a number of New York Times best-selling books. some of them in the fiction genre, in the the thriller, military thriller genre, others in the nonfiction special operations genre. I mean, the biggest of which, of course, has to be that you co-authored with Jim DeFelice and, of course, Chris Kyle, American Sniper, the autobiography of the most lethal sniper in U.S. military history. And I'm excited to have you on, but I mean, I think first and foremost, not to start so somber, but it's the big thing we have to mention is that yesterday, as we're recording this, is 10 years since the death of your good friend and colleague, Chris Kyle.
Yeah, man. It just, in the blink of an eye, you think about it, I was just checking my voicemails, and I look back at some voicemails that I got from Chris that are still on my phone. And it's like, you just think like yesterday when I got that call, and I actually got that call from Brandon, and he'd been.
And you're talking about Brandon Webb.
Yeah, and he had been called by his buddies in Team 6 Black, and those guys said, "Look, dude, Chris is dead." And I was like, there's some really dark humor amongst the SEALs and military in general. And I'm like, "Look, dude, that is not a good joke." He's like, "I am not joking."
Yeah, that's that.
Yeah,
Especially we don't joke about that kind of stuff.
I was like, "Look, dude," and then it just, I was thinking back to that, that poem that's out there. Don't worry about what you think is going to come, because it's that Wednesday afternoon call at 4 p.m. out of the blue that just knocks your ass to the ground. And that's exactly what that did.
And the way that, I mean, I do think you have to mention the manner in which he died is so crazy. I mean, this is a guy who had so many combat deployments with SEAL Team 3. I mean, that's how he knew Brandon Webb, and that's really how I know you. But all these combat deployments as a member of SEAL Team 3, he comes home, he does his usual thing as a Texas guy, goes to a shooting range with his good friend Chad Littlefield, and he's doing something that I feel like Chris Paranto would do. He brings a veteran out to a shooting range to, work out some post-traumatic stress, and this guy shoots and kills Chris along with Chad Littlefield. I mean, it's just to think that this maniac did what the Taliban couldn't, what Al Qaeda couldn't, it's really incredible. And it doesn't feel like 10 years because I never knew Chris Kyle, but I remember working at Sirius XM, and he was the guy who was regularly there. And I mean, he was the first SEAL who put out that book that everyone knows. I mean, of course, you had Dick Marcinko before him, but when you think of like the special operations military veterans from this era, Chris Kyle he was the guy.
Yeah. As I look back on that, and because there was a lot of thoughts, and looking back 10 years ago, none of us knew. We always thought, and one of the things that I did with the publisher and made sure of, that we had the best security you can imagine. I mean, literally, we had former SEALs that were there, gunned up, ready to roll. Anybody reaches in their pocket, let me tell you something, they're gonna have they're better than the Secret Service, a lot of these guys, and and they can read people. And so every single public event where you're looking down, signing books, as you know, Chris, you look down, you sign books, you haven't got your antenna up.
Oh yeah. You could get, it's easy I've said it myself, coming back to my room, like, how easy would it have been just to somebody to walk up to me. I'd never see it. So I always have somebody there next to me, whether they're security or not, at least somebody there watching. Say, don't pay attention to me. I just need you to watch and just give me a heads up. But it's difficult to do. And during that time frame too, that was during, a lot of those team guys were going on DynCorp, and were going on the Karzai detail. So they had a lot of experience on protective security. In fact, they were huge because they were in Afghanistan, getting off job, either on their teams going and protecting Karzai, or that's when the contracting world started to, I remember that time frame when it was big money. And a lot of us were jumping ship and going to these contracting companies, but those guys were experts. No, they set the standard at the beginning with DynCorp and the Karzai details and so forth.
And so we were ready for that, but it's that one you don't expect.
Yeah.
That one you don't see the potential threat coming in a circumstance like what Chris was doing with another guy, that's whatever, you're out working, out of the range. And the circumstances that led up to this, because I did a lot of research, because we weren't sure, and I wanted to go. So I talked to the police chief in Dallas. The guy met with me personally. I spoke with the guys that were in the investigation. I spoke with all the team guys that were there looking out after things and trying to figure this out and everything else. Let me tell you something. He took his personal carry, and they were at that gun range. And while they were out front shooting, he emptied his personal carry in addition to the other gun that he had with him.
Sure.
And so his 45, was empty that he had for his personal carry. Then he was walking back when this guy opened up on him. And so he did not have a firearm on him that was loaded at that time, because the guy was back in the bench back behind doing this thing. And so, I thought to myself, man, it's that one time when you trust the other person that comes back to literally blow up in your face.
It's there. You got to have a time to be. We all say, "Hey, complacency kills," but we can't be on all the time. There's got to be some downtime. And honestly, at a range, it's like when we go fishing. I'll go to the range and I'll feel like I'm out fishing. It's nothing like, man, I'm outside, I'm relaxing. So I don't blame. I don't blame him for wanting to be like that at all at the range. He's in his environment. I'm around people that I feel safe. There's a sense of complacency there, but you got to come down every once in a while and not always be on guard. And for that to happen, did you have any more information? I mean, as far as just personally with this guy, and forgive me for not knowing the name, and I don't want to know the name of the guy that killed Chris, but did he mention anything about him? Was there any conversations because from what I understand, he did have some sort of like a mentoring relationship with him, correct? Or was this just or am I way off?
Here's what happened. Here's the other glitch in the armor, if you will, is that he was introduced to Chris through the mother. Their kids went to the same school. She had some younger kids too, younger than this guy. This guy, frankly, I could care less. He's a shitbird. Before he went in the military, he had drug issues, whatever else. Somehow he got a pass to get in, was never outside the wire, and was apparently a shitbird while he was in the military. They either dishonorable, I don't think he got a dishonorable, but I think he was asked to leave. I'm not quite sure what the ending of his service was, but it was less than, let's just say, above board. Gets out, gets back on the drugs, had restraining orders against him by his family. Wow. They'd taken the guns away, and the mother failed to mention any of this to Chris before he takes him out on the event.
Were the parents, so Chris knew the mother or just because the kid just
in the parking lot? Hello, how are you? How are your kids? She approached him to help her vet son, who was obviously, whatever, off the edge. And but failed to mention all the other issues that were out there. And had Chris known that, I'm sure once again it would have put his antenna up, to say, look, maybe we ought to watch what's going on here.
Put up necessary precautions where you're not feeling complacent, because I get that too. That's one thing as a parent, or if I ever take anybody out to the range, I do want to know a little bit of them. And if I don't know them, then the friend comes out with me, that whoever it is, not the person, but another one, and they know. Actually, we have it said already, and I even said. Not to be derogatory toward Chris, but I tell guys, I don't want a Chris Kyle at the range, and I hate to say, and I say that, and they know exactly what I mean. They're like, okay, I said, you ain't shooting, you're watching me, watching my back, and you're watching these people over here, and they get that, and sadly, we put as military guys, we always aren't always the classiest people at all to say it like that, but that's what's normally said, and we understand what that means, and say, hey, I'm not sure about these people here, so you need to watch my back.
Exactly, unless it's somebody and so anyway, a bad series of events that led to the loss of my friend, and I look back and but if I was going to be more positive, Ian, one thing I will say is this: I think Chris brought a lot of light to the military community, and a lot of respect to the military community and those that were suffering from PTS and needed help with PTS, not because of this guy, but because Chris, and we were so honest in the book about his own, tunnel that he had to get through when he got out, and the PTS issues he was dealing with and things of that nature. I felt that part of it hopefully has saved others' lives, so that men that have these issues going on feel comfortable enough to say, hey, I need help. And
absolutely,
messages of that book that I really like is that I tried to give people a voice, and Chris tried to give people a voice to say, hey, I'm a tough guy, but sometimes all of us need help.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do want to focus on the positive, and I just kind of wanted to get that out of the way. But I think,
I know, yeah.
yeah, well, I was going to say, getting into the backstory of everything, people might want to know because, you know, you weren't someone like who worked with, let's say, Chris Peranto on his book, where the book publisher introduces you to someone. You had a friendship with Chris prior to putting out this book. So how did you meet Chris? What's the origin of all of that led to American Sniper?
Yeah, Chris was friends with another buddy of mine in the teams, and I was introduced to Chris at a bar in Alpine, California, where and he was there with his two kids, with Bubba and his daughter, and we were there, and I got, we were just drinking buddies, and literally, he was still active duty. He was here on a workup for the teams, and he was based here. 3 is based here in Coronado, and so I just got to know him, and we became friends, shooting buddies. We go out shooting or whatever else, and things of that nature. So, but just as a result of, having a half case of Coors Light with them or something like that, I heard some just amazing stories that, I felt were just absolutely outrageous. And not so much the fact that he was, the number one, confirmed kill guy, in that world. That wasn't it. The stories were just crazy of the things that had gone on, and then 3 tours of deployment, and I just thought to myself, that was amazing in and of itself, just to hear this, because this was kind of like the band of brothers of this generation of warfighter, and these kind of things go on. And his stories are not atypical to all you guys. And I'm sure Tonto can say, like there's weird stuff that goes on when you're in urban combat battle. I mean, and that's exactly what Chris was deployed in, for this time. And so, and I felt that was fascinating. I felt it was a story worth telling. And then, frankly, I think the most, selling part of that book was the fact that Chris would stay at my house because him and Taya had problems. And we didn't lie about that in the book at all. We didn't cover that up. And in fact, Taya had a voice in the book, and Taya was able to comment upon certain things that happened during the war, seeing, a report, 10 Navy SEALs or 5 Navy SEALs downed in helicopter, unknown death toll number. And you watch these TV reports and stuff like that, these family members, and they're like, they have to get to the point where they don't even watch the TV because it freaks them out so bad, not knowing if that was their loved one that was in it. And I thought, man, isn't this a weird dimension of this war that we have going on here that really needs to be told? Because of the 300,000 deployed, we got another 10 million back here that are related to those deployed, that are standing on pins and needles, and the rest of the nation, they don't even know we're at war. They don't even know we got a damn war going on, and it's like, it's so crazy when you look at the dynamics of that. And I wanted to tell that story. I wanted to have that story told, because that's why so many women attached to that book was they felt that.
Yeah. And my wife did definitely as well. And that's something that with the media, and that's wrong in how they cover wars now, is just something like that, where there's news putting out there and the family members haven't even been alerted. And now you're just, they don't see the effect, or if they do, they don't care. Or when we moves like Sarah Carter will marry an actual an operator, and then she understands, hey, maybe we shouldn't be putting this stuff out and sensationalize it, because now we're just making families basically, well, it can drive them to divorce, which is kind of what, because of the stress, and it drove me and my wife to get separated and divorced. We reconciled, but we got back. But a lot of it had to do, of course, with me and my stupidity, but a lot of it had to do with a lot of extra stress and not knowing. And I guess I kind of like to talk about that if we can, but also that is a tight group. Any special operations group is a tight group. And you mentioned a band of brothers. How did you get in there, man? How did he, because we're always worried about outsiders, always are. And like, man, I don't know. But sometimes you're able to infiltrate that group. What'd you do?
I'm a recovering lawyer now. Then I was practicing law. Then I was practicing law, and my pro bono work that I did was really for the SEALs. I mean, I'm talking about everything from somebody pulling a gun on them at a bar, they take the gun and shoot the guy, to civil actions, to wife gets ripped off from some punk auto repair shop, and I got to call them up and basically say, look, dude, you're gonna fix the car, okay? Stuff like that. So as a result of that, I used to get random calls, from SEAL team guys all the time, and they basically said, look, this guy, we trust him. He doesn't charge us anything, and if he does, it's just costs, whatever, and he goes out there and he gets it done, and so I just basically got to the point where I was trusted by a group of people because of attorney-client relationships that molded into, hey, I'm having a birthday party, we're going to do this or that. So, I mean, basically I was their lawyer, inside the groups, so then they could call me on anything. And God knows I was called on anything, and like weird stuff,
No, I can see you're probably busy, especially there in Southern California too. Yeah, I guess you were busier than I don't know what busier than a pig in shit. Is that the word? Or is that dirtier than a pig in shit? I don't know.
And a variety of things from assault and battery to you name it, everything that could happen with a SEAL that might be out drinking or having a beer or two. You know what I mean?
Just two, just one or two. Yeah, that's all. But that's good. And we need people like that we can trust on the outside, because Lord knows we can't trust the JAG officers. No, you can't trust.
No. NCIS. If they get a phone call from them, dude, I tell them all the time, just hang up and call your lawyer. Call me, because that's it. Dude. You don't even want to talk to them. That's what
that was what was told to me. Definitely. Well, can you get into a little bit? Because I don't know much about it aside from what was written out there. But even if you can delve in deeper, just when he was living with you and you were learning, getting to know him real well, and him going through, I'm sure, like I did the same thing. All those ups and downs when a relationship is not working out and starting to break up, and you have children too that you love to death. Right. What was that like in that year? And how did I think I'd like to know how you helped him. I think there's people out there that maybe could get some ideas if they're going through the same thing.
Well, and we like I said, once again, I'm not divulging anything here that wasn't already talked about in the book, because I don't want to get to the point where she says, oh, well, I said something that wasn't,
Sure, of course.
But the bottom line is, they were having trouble. It was very, very true. And my advice to Chris was, because when they tried to re-up him to go back in for, after the 4th deployment, I said, look, dude, you've done your part. You've been at war now for 10 years. You have got issues going on, frankly, I'm not telling you got issues going on. You got blood pressure issues. You got, some PTS stuff that's coming back and hitting you hard. You got some stuff that you need to deal with. And your relationship, I don't know where it goes, but you got to give it a chance, because as long as you're at war, whether you're in war or out of war, whatever, you're still at war, because you still could be deployed again. And I said, as long as you're there, you're never going to get your mind to the point where you're in family mode as opposed to war mode, because even though those guys work up for 18 months and then deploy for 6, that 6, as you know, is a tough 6, man. I mean, those guys are rolling the whole time. And then when they're working up, they've got to do all their stuff with their new group and work up for 18 months. They're away from home there too. So, the fact of being a SEAL is extremely difficult. The fact of being a SEAL at war makes it that much worse. And, these guys are doing back to back deployments. And how do you have time to have a family?
You don't. Yeah, you don't.
And so that's really what was doing it. And I encouraged him. And I think my best legal advice I ever gave to Chris was, get out of the military, move to Texas, and get your life back together. It's time for you to get back, out of this whole world of, and get back to your roots and see if it works. And that's exactly what he did. And, I'm happy that they had that time before, unfortunately, we lost him.
Yeah. And what I wanted to ask is, did it take a lot of convincing to get him to write a book? Because I feel like now it's so natural for a guy who has a story like Chris's to get out of special operations and write a book. And there isn't as much scrutiny. I know at the time, I mean, he definitely took a lot of heat, and we can get into some of that, but I think there became that stereotype of Navy SEALs just want to capitalize on everything. They want to write a book. They want to make themselves look heroic. And did it take a while to say you should get your story out there? Because there's that whole contradictory thing. And I think you've dealt with it, Chris, too, where you're supposed to be the silent professional, quiet professional. And then he writes a book that has, let's be honest, this outrageous co-title, the most confirmed kills, and he was out there in the spotlight more than anyone else at the time in special operations.
Yeah, it was difficult. And I think, and I talked to some other guys, and there's kind of, I don't say two camps, but there's kind of two camps within that SEAL community. And basically there's that one that says you can't even say the name SEAL because it doesn't exist, which is, I think, is sophistry. Let's face it, at best, whatever, that the SEALs are this community that we don't talk about it even existing, whatever else. And then there's the other community that says, look, it's okay as long as we don't obviously disclose tactics or procedures or anything that would compromise our ability or a men's ability that's in the field to do their job, then it's, so there's, and those two camps still exist to this day. I mean, and there's not much you can do about it, about that whole world of, we don't talk about this or that. But from my perspective, and the way that I told Chris that I felt this should be is, look, we're not going to tell stories that are going to compromise anybody, period, end of story. We're going to submit to the Department of Defense, which we did, thank God, because there's others that didn't and had the entirety of their book proceeds taken from them, which is another, big thing that I would tell anybody in the military that's watching the show. Submit, man. If you're going to do anything, submit, because they have the option to just take your money and prosecute you for anything that you're talking about that could have happened while active duty. So I'm a big proponent of doing it the right way. And I told Chris that that's the way it was. And I said, finally, everybody else is going to tell your story. Why not give your kids something so that they have a lasting memory of you? And this is, whatever number of years from now, and you can tell the way it happened, and so that's really why Chris, I think, decided to do the book.
And what do you want people to know about Chris? Like, beyond just reading the book, because I feel like this audience, right? I feel like almost everybody who's read 13 Hours probably read American Sniper. Like, these were the big books of special operations and private military contracting. And yeah, I mean, what other than what's in there, what do you want people to know about your friend?
Chris was an amazingly funny guy. And when I say funny guy, he was just a really, really had a hell of a sense of humor. And I used to he just cracked me up. I remember we had a guy, that was the SEAL team guy that introduced me to Chris. He had not finished a contracting job at his house. The first time I met him, I didn't know Chris at all. I was sitting at the bar next to this other team buddy of mine. He goes up, puts him in a carotid chokehold and drops him, passes him out and drops him at the bar right there. Just like one arm, because Chris was a big boy. One armed him, dropped him right there. The guy's like on the ground, wakes up. He's like, oh, so there's my wall. Oh, here we go. So no, he was, it's like, he's just a really funny guy. Always like to have a laugh, never got, upset irrationally. I mean, not that kind of guy that would go in and start a bar fight over something stupid, whatever, but you wanted to start it with him. Don't get me wrong. Not that guy. Yeah. So I liked being with him. I enjoyed shooting with him. I enjoyed, having a beer with him. He was just a normal guy from Texas. We both grew up on ranches. We both grew up riding horses. So we had a lot in common there. And frankly, his weapon of choice in combat was a 300 Winchester Magnum. And all I shot growing up, deer and elk in Oregon, was a 300 Winchester Magnum. So I knew that caliber and that gun, the drop on the bullet, everything else, on that rifle extremely well, which I think he was impressed by too, because I could reach out and hit things at distance that obviously he could as well.
Good. When your book tour was, when it was going on, and now did you travel with him on the book tour?
Some of them, I did some of them. He did the New York stuff. We did the, mostly himself. Anything on the West Coast we did, so I did a lot of stuff with him out here. And it was just a matter of what was going on, so we did part of it together. So we did do some traveling together, but, I wanted him to have his day and his son. It was his book. Sure. It was his story. It wasn't my story at all. I was just, I was a scrivener. That's it. A scribe. And I think the thing that I personally take credit for more than anything for that book is a critic from AOL, HuffPost, one of the lefty groups, said, this book reads like you just sat down in a bar, started a tape recorder, opened up a beer, and said, tell me about this or that. And I said, you got it.
That's right. You nailed it on that. That's the best review ever right there.
You got it. You
Man,
know,
those-
and it's so funny because, you know, she was trying to be, you know, whatever, like you're, this is not prose that I would see, you know, from Shakespeare. And they're like, no, this is prose from warfighters. This is
Oh,
how it works.
You know, it's always, we got the same kind of review from the Vox review. I was like, what? Yeah, that's what we're going for. We don't use the $10 words. Yes, Mr. and Mrs. Elitist that uses those $10 words. Best review. And I even said that I think to Tig after I read our review. I'm like, this is best review ever right here.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. So anyway.
That with the book, and I did. It was when the book came out, it was a different for us, and I did have teammates because I had teammates to rely on that when we were doing the book tour. But it's still, there's a lot of times it did bother me. It did, and I know people around me that knew me could see it, even though I may put a smiley face on when I go on the news. When I got off it, that face would come off. Did you see that were, and I have to admit now looking back, I was hiding a lot, trying to be happy. I was faking being happy because look, I'm in the news, this and that, I'm out here. Did you see a lot of that from Chris where he could put on that good face to go on and be on Hannity's show, but then come off and be like, I don't want to do this anymore. I really felt like that for quite a few years, but I hid it quite well. But you know, of course my wife could see it. And some of my closest friends could see it. Did you see that from Chris? And if you did you say anything to him? Were you able to talk to him about it and get him through those tough times? Because it's harder than people think being out there when you're not ready. That's not what you signed up for. You didn't sign up to be on TV.
You know, it was kind of strange, and yes, certainly there was downtimes, you know, that happened, and criticisms and critiques and stuff that, you know, shots that hurt, you know, that even
Sure.
though you don't like to say it hurts, you know, and so we definitely went through that, and he went through that, and, you know, so we worked through a lot of that. I think the thing was, it was really, I don't know, outrageous and bizarre was that book popped up to #1 almost immediately and stayed there for 36 weeks.
Yeah,
total.
okay.
I mean, I'm talking about, you didn't need to do press. I mean, after about 3 weeks a month, you know, it was like to the point where I was like, you know, with the publisher, I was like, okay, look, if you really want me to do it, I'll do it, you know, but I'm not going to do daytime, you know, whatever, Oklahoma, you know, whatever,
Yeah.
news show, whatever. And I'm not being critical when I say that or egotistical. I just told Chris, I said, look, if it's a national show, you can do a feed from a local area. You don't have to travel, get away from the kids or whatever. Let's do this rationally. Let's start. And this was really before podcasts or the ability to have this.
Yeah.
But that said, there was always places you could go for a feed. And so I just said, look, man, don't deploy. We're not going to deploy to go out on the road anymore. We're going to basically do it from home. And so that was one of the things that I think really helped, you know.
Oh, definitely.
Talking about, you know, the criticisms of the book, I think it's fair to get into this type of thing. You know, I know it's a little bit of the negative, but look, I think for all of us, there's positive and negatives. And I think it's the same with Chris. I mean, if you Google Chris Kyle, it'll come up the stuff of, was this accurate that he talked about? Was this on point? And I know that's been, even while he was alive, a lot of that was going on, right? So I wanted to ask you about that, because when you talk about the book shooting up to #1, I think for one, you, Jim DeFelice, and Chris made an incredible book. I think it was an incredible story, great timing. Part of that, though, was the Jesse Ventura controversy. And I remember I even spoke to you on the phone about it, like in a private conversation. I won't get into like what we said, but I know there was criticism over, you know, why was that included? Should that have been in there? And then stuff about the shooting looters at the top of the Superdome during Hurricane Katrina. Was this completely accurate? Was even the title that he's the most deadly sniper, is that 100% accurate? So I just wanted to ask, like, do you feel like some of that you guys did in order to make this a little bit more over the top and sell a great story? Because I know up until the day he died, Chris was like, this is my story, I'm sticking to it, and I was accurate about everything. And some people say they don't believe that. So,
well, Ian, I'm not gonna speak to some of those things that obviously weren't in the book.
Sure.
About, you know, because I wasn't involved in that, and really I tried to stay away from a lot of that stuff, you know. So what I can say is this, relative to, like, so for example, the Jesse Ventura story. We left Jesse's name out of that for a reason. I left his name out of that for a reason, because I said this guy has had litigation, let's just say experience in the past
Yeah.
with the WWE,
Yeah.
WWF guys, things of that nature. And I said, it doesn't bring anything to the table. Now, as far as that fight is concerned, or that night is concerned, Mikey Mansour's, basically his wake in Coronado, bar, drunk, whatever, we're talking about a SEAL team affair here.
Yep.
This is not, what you would, your average, if you will,
No, it's not a black tie, white collar. No,
Was he there? What happened there? I had reports from many different people on many different things that took place there. I don't know. All I know is what was reported to me and what other SEALs said that were at the event where Jesse was there, Chris was there, and everything else. So that said, that's.
Well, I want to interrupt you because I want to ask one thing, because now I'm racking my brain here. As you know, right at that time, I was working at Sirius XM.
Right.
And if I remember this correctly, because I followed Chris Kyle's career just as anyone else who admired what he did, I believe it was he went on Opie and Anthony. I think this is where it happened. He went on Opie and Anthony. Yeah, he went on Opie and Anthony. And I think someone called in and they were like,
a SEAL
called in and he's like, hey, Chris, I wanted to give you props for, what you did to Jesse Ventura, knocking him out or something like that. And then Opie and Anthony, oh, you got to tell us this story. What happened? Yeah. And that's where he got into the story. So I'm wondering, as you probably were listening at the time, were you like, fuck, then don't get into it. Why are you doing this? Like, was that your reaction at all?
Yeah, you can't even believe. Like, I was like, look, dude, stay away from it. Stay away from it. What we said in there, we did not use his name. We did not, oh yeah, here it comes.
You're screaming at the radio going, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, so it was a mess that, obviously that I would have liked to have avoided. But I've got another story for you. And let me tell you something. This is the truth. And he would sue me if it weren't the truth, because I'm telling you right now, get this. I am in Mexico with my fiance, my girlfriend. And I am literally between Cabo San Lucas and another little place that's in the Baja there. And this is a off the grid bar, restaurant, beautiful place, no telephone communications. They have internet there, whatever else. I'm out fishing, come in with my fishing pole because the bar and the restaurant are the same, overlooking the beach there. This place is the middle of nowhere. Come in with my fishing pole, put it up, and who walks in? Jesse Ventura.
Jesse Ventura.
Okay, dude. Okay, this is the truth. And Jesse his wife was there too. His wife wasn't there right then. His wife comes walking in a little bit later. And so I'm sitting there and he's looking over and he's thinking to himself, because I'm in the bar, he comes walking in, because from what I didn't know, he has a house near there that he lives in, in that area. Anyway, so I'm in there and I'm like, oh no. And so he's looking over and he's like, I know that guy from somewhere. I'm not sure where I know. I can tell by looking at him. And so we had internet access in the hotel. So I get a hold of my girlfriend. I said, and I text her and I'm like, hey, Jesse Ventura's in the bar. You better come down here. And she writes me back, stop drinking. And I'm like, no, I'm not kidding. So she comes down and this whole event happens, and I'm talking to Jesse there. And it actually stayed, this was, it stayed pretty cordial, rational, and we had this discussion in there. And I said, look, dude, I told you before you started it, this was way into the litigation. In fact, I think it was up on appeal and before it was ultimately.
Oh, so you're the court, it's already going, the litigation.
Yeah, it's already going.
Oh, shit.
Going. Anyway, so the whole thing, and I'm telling you, man, and I said to him, look, I don't know where you benefit from this, and I told you that from day one. It was like, well, this and that. I said, I don't want to talk about it. I wasn't there. I merely reported what I heard had happened, and that's what I guess my defense judge, I'm sticking to it. But the bottom line is, but I don't know where it benefits anybody, to have this going on. And so we ultimately got done with the conversation. But it's a small world, man.
That is in Mexico. Down there. Unbelievable.
In the middle of nowhere.
It's supposed to happen, man. It was supposed to happen.
It's supposed to happen. Yeah.
But as politicians go, and I even in those 3 years of me being around all them damn politicians, and one thing they always said, it doesn't matter what media it is, good or bad, it's always good. And I think maybe that's where he's at. He's like, hey, I don't think that's the case. I hated period. But it's like, man, my name's out there, good or bad, it doesn't matter as long as my name gets
Well, I
out there.
think
Maybe
that
that's where it's-
I'm not attributing that to him, but that definitely crossed my mind.
yeah, well, shit. I'll attribute it to him. He can call in and hate us. That's fine.
Well, I got a chance to interview him, years
No
back.
shit.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
it was with Brandon Webb. We
What's
got
up?
into this, and it was interesting, man. I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Scott, where it's like I respect both of these guys. I respect their service, and in terms of this, I don't really know. Just like you, I wasn't there. And it's not for me to say what went down, and these guys will say what they want to, but I want to make sure we get into like what you're up to, because as I said, you've written a number of New York Times best-selling books. And when I was texting you to come on, you were like, I have some really cool stuff in the works. I'd love to hear about it.
And I feel bad, Ian, because I'm in a position right now. Let's just say one of my book series has just been signed up by a major studio for several books.
Wow.
And so I'm not in a position right now to really release the information, but I will say this: I would love to come back on later and talk to you about it, because it's going to be a major deal, and it is a major deal.
Nice.
I'm just not in a position to publicly disclose that deal, if you will, while we speak. And
No worries.
I'm extremely excited about it, because the team that's been put together for it is really good, and really good. And it was always my idea, if you will, to have that superhero character being a military guy, kind of the old idea of G.I. Joe, from the old
Yeah.
days. Why can't that be a character that people look up to, that we want our children to emulate, that shows the values that they do? Why does it have to be a guy with a mask and a cape and and a codpiece? I mean, why can't we make those our heroes like it used to be? And that's kind of what this is going to be. I really believe that's what it's going to be, and I'm really excited about it.
Oh, that's amazing. And it should be. And look, it's still, even in the Midwest, G.I. Joe is still pretty big out here. So it hasn't, we haven't lost it completely, but you're right. We don't have those military figures as we used to. And I grew up on G.I. Joe. I love all that stuff. And it was awesome. And playing with the Army men, all the little plastic art. And so I don't think it's ever gone away. It's just kind of gone in hibernation. It's about ready to come back out. I think everything always goes in full circle. And people are like, that's time to bring it back. So I'm looking forward to it. Whenever it comes out, whatever you can't talk about now, look forward about talking back. And
I apologize for that, because I don't like to do that, but let's just say that the studios said, look, we're on radio silence right now, and frankly, there's a big division in the military that's looking at backing this thing as well.
Good deal.
Yeah, no, I mean, the last time that we had someone come on who was like, I have a major announcement, it was Jack Carr, and it was the Terminalist. And there's so many people come on, I have a big announcement, but like the Terminalist, man, this thing has been huge. It's like top of Amazon. I'd love to get him back on. So hopefully this has similar success.
Yeah.
And you know what I wanted to make sure we ask you about then, and we could, talk about maybe your most recent books and stuff that we can talk about, but we didn't get into it, so I might as well ask you the American Sniper movie. I mean, you were a part of that. Do you feel it was indicative of like what you wanted to put that out there as a book? Was it as good as you were hoping for? I mean, that exposed Chris's story to a whole new audience. And, I know you were involved, and Taya was involved, and trying to make it as accurate as possible.
Well, I was deeply involved. I mean, that whole thing I was very concerned about, because Chris was still alive at the time that we made that deal with Warner Brothers. And so, but Chris was in a place in Texas where he's like, Scott, you play with Hollywood. I don't want to talk to them. I don't really want to deal with them, whatever else. And so I was kind of the guy that was in charge of going up there, getting a hold of people. The producer that I chose, Andrew Lazar, and then from there, Bradley Cooper, which is a very strange choice to play Chris Kyle. And Bradley and Chris had one conversation with Bradley Cooper, and it was a cell phone conversation that I patched it in on a three-way, because I had talked to Bradley several times, and Andrew Lazar, the producer, and Jason Hall, who I also chose to do the script. Jason knew Bradley well. They were both in recovery. They both are very open about the fact that they, they've been sober for a number of years, and they both knew each other, through those kind of channels. So they were very close, Jason and Bradley. And so I talked to Bradley, and a few times, and I'm like, look, dude, I don't mean to be rude. You're the People Magazine 3-time best looking man on earth. You are Hollywood. I said, you are about to play one of the roughest men I've ever met. And I know a lot of SEALs that are flat pipe hitters, that are rough men. I said, you've got to come completely outside your world to really play this guy right. You can't be Bradley Cooper. You've got to do it. And let me tell you something. It was the best choice that we ever made. We got him on a phone call with Chris. It was a 3-way, and Bradley's like joking around and Chris is joking around. And so the decision was made. Bradley was going to play Chris. And let me tell you something. He not only bought into it, he became it. He became an offset. When we were on set, whatever else, that guy spoke in a Texas drawl the entire time, Chris's voice. And he would tell me, he'd say, look, you're one person that's here that know Chris just about as well as anybody on earth, and you tell me every time I say something that he would not have said. And he became that person during that entire period of time while Clint was directing that movie. During that, that entire period of time, he became Chris Kyle. It was almost like a ghost, because at the time Chris was dead.
Yeah. That's
it really was that close. And I take my hat off to Bradley. His politics are not my politics. His whatever, the people he rolls with are probably completely different than the people I roll with, whatever else, but
just a tad, just a little bit.
Yeah. And the thing is this, he became that character, and he did credit to Chris Kyle, because he really, really did a great job of playing the man to the T, to the T. He did a hell of a job.
Good to hear. That's good to hear. And it's good to hear that even with the minimal interaction that he got from, I didn't know Chris, same AOs, we were working many times, but I never met him.
Right.
Team 3, Glenn Doherty worked on Team 3, but I, even at that time when Chris was alive, I didn't know Bub, because Bub was still on Team 3. But that's one thing is that you always worry about. But I with actors in Hollywood and movies, I had a good relationship with Pablo. Actually, Pablo and I got to know each other very, very well. I was worried that he was going to screw stuff up. Right. And so so that's why we got to know each other. But you're spot on with the politics. His politics completely different. And I'm sure Bradley's are, but that says, and again, it gave me a different respect for Hollywood. And I don't have a huge respect for Hollywood, but it gave me a lot of respect for the actors in Hollywood, especially the ones that are professional and good and take their craft seriously, is they will put those political differences aside. And especially if it's a war veteran or somebody that's been in combat or a veteran itself, and get those mannerisms exactly right. Like Pablo, he never dipped Copenhagen. He was dipping Copenhagen always. I said, dude, you got to dip. I dip all the time. It's got to be on there. You guys. And so but it says a lot. And that says a good thing with Bradley, of him taking that Texas drawl and putting his whatever political views he had aside to get the character right. And it shows a lot of respect for still the Hollywood, at least the actors, maybe not outwardly as a group, as a conglomerate, but individual actors do have a lot of respect for military veterans in Hollywood. And it sounds like Bradley had the same, military veterans as they're portraying in Hollywood. And it sounded like Bradley had that same respect from what you're telling me.
No, he did. He really did. And obviously Clint Eastwood, working with Clint was amazing. I mean, the guy, I've been a fan of his since I was a kid. I probably watched every spaghetti Western 10 times. I mean, I've probably seen Ugly 50, I don't know, anyway, but the bottom line is, we started that out. And the reason I chose Andrew Lazar was not only his honesty, which is rare in that town, but also the fact that he had done Space Cowboys with Clint Eastwood. And Andrew was extremely, and his cabana, Andrew's office is right down the way at Warner Brothers from Clint's cabana, where his squirrels are, where he has his on the lot there at Warner Brothers studio. Anyway, but Andrew was extremely honest, and he told me, hey, I will get this script in front of him, but I cannot guarantee you that Clint Eastwood is going to direct this movie. I will not do that, Scott. I don't know who's going to do it. We didn't have a director at that time, but obviously with Bradley being part of the deal, a big director was coming on. Sure. And then Spielberg picked it up. Steven picked it up and said he was going to direct it for a while there. And, everybody's like, oh, aren't you happy? Well, let's just say politically, I disagree with Spielberg's position on the Second Amendment and on guns in this country. And so a lot of people are like, oh my God, the biggest producer in the world, the biggest director in the world, one of them has got your movie, whatever else. And I said, dude, it was bittersweet because I really didn't want that. And then he dropped it. And then I got that phone call from Clint Eastwood. And basically he said, Scott, I'm going to, I knew that voice, that voice is so identifiable. He's like, I want to direct a movie. And I said, dude, you were Chris's choice. You were my choice. And I don't know if God came in and had a say in this or what, but it's not, out of a bolt of lightning that says that you were the man to direct this movie because we wanted you from day one. And that's the truth.
Well, I think it was God coming in and saying, yeah, we need to, if Clint, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Clint Eastwood, was it Friends of Abe? He's pretty, if you want a political spectrum, he's pretty right leaning. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, as much as actors can put, their political leanings aside, especially if you get to know the actual person you're going to represent, or at least friends of that person you're going to represent. I don't know if directors, and I'm speaking off the cuff here, but I don't know if directors can do that. And I don't know if it would have turned out correctly if Steven Spielberg had it. I think there would have been some overtone. And again, I'm speculating, I'm giving my opinion, but some overtones of guns are bad, war's bad. Instead of just telling the story.
Or even not. I was just going to say, like, let's just say he does put all that aside. And then some type of shooting happens, right? And then he's as the movie's out there, he's out there in the press saying stuff that Chris would completely disagree with. Yeah. Like, it does taint the movie a little bit. And people see that happen all the time where they love a movie and then the director of that movie is out in the press and they're saying something that disparages more than half the audience and it turns them off.
Were you worried about that, Scott, at all? Were you worried? Because again, Chris can't defend himself. That's another thing. As the movie comes out, now he can't defend himself in public. What's going through your head, or even thinking that far down the road?
Well, I was defending him, on occasion, but and I would obviously I'm still a huge advocate of him and the other guys that serve with him, but so I was worried about that, certainly worried about that. But I will say this, everybody involved in that project, including Bradley. And I remember one time a real right-leaning show tried to get me to say something bad about Bradley and, on his politics or whatever else. I was on a pretty right-leaning show. And I said, look, I'm not going to do it. I said, I'm not going there. Whatever his political viewpoints are. I had another SEAL team commander one time tell me something, and it's very true. I fight for your right to disagree with my politics. That's what this country is all about. And so I'm not here to say, Bradley, I disagree with him or he's wrong on this or whatever else. I wouldn't do it. And it's funny because I got a phone call shortly thereafter from, and he's like, thanks, dude. And I'm like, it's all good. It's all good, man. I believe you.
Now I'm wondering if the right-leaning show was like something that I helped Scott get on, because when I think of our history, right? Like I've worked with you in getting, I believe, you on like Andrew Wilkow, which is like as right-leaning as it gets. And then I also got Scott an appearance on Senator Bill Bradley's show, which he's as left-leaning as it gets.
Yeah,
which, by the way, is like, it's the nature of the business too. I think people don't realize, like someone like me, right? I'll work with whoever as long as they're respectful. Just because I work on someone's show doesn't mean I share their politics 100%. And I think people do forget that. Like if you're in radio or you're in media, like it's a business like anything else. And yeah, my politics might not be 100% reflected. I think even like when I worked on Wilkow, if I would say something, well, Andrew would disagree with that. And it's like, well, I'm not him. I work with him. I agree with him on plenty of things. And even on this, that's why I like doing a show like this, because Chris and I could disagree on plenty of things, still be respectful with one another. Yeah. And I think so much media is just trying to tell you how to think. And that's like the beauty of podcasts. Like we have people on here all the time who have, we had Chris Dykos on, right? Who's a Ranger, but I would say is extremely left-leaning.
We served in the same squad at Ranger Battalion. It's amazing. People, there's a stereotypes that people have that, hey, we perpetuate them too. Everybody perpetuates them a bit, but as far as the actors go, and that stereotype that Hollywood actors has, like I said, as a big whole, I guess we could probably lump them together. We probably shouldn't, but we do. But you're right, as far as even the actors I mean, John Krasinski, who played Jack, or played SEAL Team 5, our buddy Jack, he's one of his best friends, Jimmy Kimmel. If you don't know which way he lay, come on, but all those actors, I think, and I feel the same as you felt like Bradley Cooper, they did their parts great. I have much respect for him. I don't have anything bad to say about him at all. Whatever politics they have on the side, who cares? I don't give two shits. I'll be honest with you. They got the guys down. They paid them their utmost respect, and they did a great job making them the doppelganger, that character, and they all did excellent. So that's great to hear, and it's great to hear that you had that kind of relationship with Bradley Cooper. And honestly, it reminds me of the same relationship we had with the guys on our set, and it was a great experience.
And with Clint Eastwood, I mean, obviously, he's beyond an icon. He's damn near a god. I mean, when it comes to in that world, let's face it. I mean, that guy is like, he's been there, done that, seen it for 70, whatever years in that town. Like he has, and later on, I was, I had a publisher approach me to do a book with Clint, and I said, it was mentioned, whatever else, and this and that. And it's like, look, dude, do I really want to bring all that up? It's like, because if you were gonna do it, I mean, like, you talk about a story like, whatever, the Jesse Ventura evening. You've had 100 of those. Just crazy stuff, from everything, you can imagine. And so it's like, just working with a guy like that, who's so relaxed and so calm and does such a great job. And I always felt that, also brought that era of reality in, because the cell phone footage, some of which was mine at the end of that movie, was just basically cell phone footage from Texas. And I thought, how are we going to leave this? How are we going to leave this at the end when Chris is dead and everybody's like, oh my God, because a lot of people didn't know that story. A lot of people, I know, did not know how that ended, and obviously the book was done before the movie, and Chris was between the two. And so it's like, you don't know how to end it. And the ending was just beautiful with Taps and with the drive between Dallas and essentially Austin, where the governor of Texas shut down an 8-lane freeway, shut it down, just said, we're shutting it down. This funeral procession is going to go between these places, and hundreds of thousands of Texans line that freeway.
That's cool.
It was truly an outpouring of respect that I have never seen in my life. And I don't think we'll ever see again. I was with another guy that I wrote a book with, Rich Miniter, who Ian knows. And Rich is an unbelievably good writer and as well. And I was with him working on another project right then. And he was there in Texas with me. And he said, Scott, I've seen state funerals all over the world. I've seen things, like people, the president of whatever dies of this country, Europe, whatever. I have never ever seen this, like this is, it's beyond reality. What you saw, that outpouring of love from those Texans towards Chris, but it was really towards the military in general. It wasn't just Chris, it was towards all those men that had served and all those women that had served. And, and those people were just out there saying, thank you.
That's well deserved, and it's deserved. Every you don't have to be Chris Kyle to get that kind of respect. I think all veterans that have served and given everything for this country deserves that kind of procession. Granted, they all don't get it, but believe me, they all deserve it.
By the way, I was at Ty's funeral. I knew Ty.
You knew? Oh, no shit.
And I used to drink at the Salty Frog in the beach. Anyway, so anyway, long story short, I knew him, and I went to that one in Coronado. They had that at the church in Coronado, and I have never seen 4-star admirals in tears. I mean, I'd never seen that before at a funeral. And I'm telling you, man, there was some crazy stuff, because that guy was really well liked.
Ron was the man. Ron was another big guy too. He was big, he was just a big
and people were upset for good reason. And we both don't need to go into those politics, but you guys were hung out to dry. And, and there was a lot of people at that funeral that were, it was a cross between love and anger. And, it was weird because, there was a lot of things that those guys knew could have been done. And those guys were in the know.
Some of those guys were actually on those teams, Djibouti, and then also they knew of the teams in Rotella, Spain, and they knew the team in Albiano and in fact. So that's what I always told the politicians, like, you guys, we go behind the scenes and we're doing our briefings or the select committee shit. And I say, you guys are briefing me here, but I know the guys that were in these positions. We worked with them, we served with them. So don't try to tell me there wasn't people available, because I know Jack that's in Djibouti. I know Ron that's with 10 Special Forces Group. That I know, but I know that's a whole other thing. But I'm glad you got to know. Did you? I saw the good Ron as a contractor. Ron, I heard, was just a hellion, just the devil incarnate, especially when he was training and instructor at Buds. But when he was with us within the agency, he was like a father figure. He was the guy that really was. He could get up and down. He was a tough motherfucker. Don't get me wrong,
Right.
but he was the guy that really was the level at that point. And he was in the 40s. So what did you? I mean, before we go here, was he still the crazy Tyrone that I never got to know, the crazy Tyrone that could break your nose in a second if you wanted to? I got to know that.
I saw that a couple times, with those guys, because that's a rough crew. I mean, that's used to drink. That was let's just say an interesting bar.
He could drink. Oh yeah, he could drink. He could still drink. That some bitch could drink his ass off.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I just, he was always good. I obviously had some background, so it was like I could step into that world, with him and kind of knew him. But you could tell the guy had a propensity to get a little bit crazy. But those guys are supposed to do.
That's what he's supposed to do, and he did. He was tremendous. I swear, he was shooting people. Then he was coming up and triaging us all our little owies, and then he'd go back to the rooftop and shoot some more people, and then he'd come back up and make sure we were all good to go. It was pretty amazing, and he was in tremendous physical condition even at that point in time in his career. We do need to have, because I didn't know that. I'd like to have you back on just to talk a little bit more.
Dude. And I'm telling you, that funeral, when I was there, because I knew the dad and the brother, and so, a few other people I got to meet there that I hadn't known even before, but, I mean, it was, I don't know, man, there's a lot to be talked about.
There was, but it was amazing what he did. And that's what keep the pot and rightfully so he's getting the Congressional Gold Medal, which him and Bub rightfully deserve. Roan did. And I still talk to his mom, Cheryl. We email every once in a while. Actually, I just talked to her via email last week. So
we got to get her on. I've said it many times.
We got to we got to get Scott back on to talk about that. My last thing, and this is it, and then I'll leave you alone, Scott, and if Ian has anything after. I wanted to just briefly, the movie and with Clint Eastwood, and then Taya was there when you were there. Was the relationship there at the movie with her? How did that go, or were you not on the set at the same time? Because we weren't always on set with Oz, and I and Tig weren't always on set at the same time. It was sometimes different. But if you were, was that? Did you see anything?
Taya was not on set. Taya was not on set, and Clint runs a closed set. I was not on set because I was one of the writers, and obviously Jason Hall and I had talked about a lot of different stuff script wise, and a lot of those things. But I was allowed to bring a pretty heavily injured Navy SEAL and another guy, on set with me, and it was actually it was good, and it was really. I brought him on just for a day to be there. And Clint made an exception to the closed set rule, because the reason he's so good at what he does is he doesn't have the girlfriends or the wives or other things, even as important as Taya's role is.
No, you're right.
Diminishing that. But, his job is to shoot the movie in 45 days on budget, on time.
God, 45 days he shot that?
That's why he is so good at what he does.
Wow.
He just gets it done. And, and that's why he's been so good and been, in the same cabana at Warner Brothers for so long, is that they know he can get it done, and they'll just say, okay, here's the money, go do it. Like they don't even know the project so much as they know the director can get it done on time and, in budget and the things he does. And he's a master. He's an absolute master at what he does. And if he likes the first shot, the first time you run through a scene, if he likes it, he's like, okay, that's good. Let's move, let's go. I mean, he's not the guy that'll shoot something 10 times because it's not exactly this or that. He doesn't run the show like that. And it's kind of amazing to see a guy that's that professional, but can see inside that box and say, no, that's what I wanted. That's
Sure.
what I wanted right there. And so I'm sure you working with what Bay with.
It was Michael. No, he was awesome. Michael Bay was tremendous. I think Clint Eastwood's probably a lot more reserved than Michael Bay.
Yeah.
Michael, but again, another one that's been in the movie business forever. And he knows what he wants. He knows what to get. I did like him because he did have us on set, and he would turn to us from time to time on the tactical scenes and go, does that look right? And it was okay for us to say, no, his hand was in the wrong position. No, his arm wouldn't have been in that position with that rifle. And he would redo the scene. Like, no, okay, we're going to do it again.
All right.
And that was what I really was impressed. And another one that didn't give two shits about politics.
Yeah.
I don't care. He just wanted to get but that was the difference. You talk about Clint Eastwood. If there was any difference that I don't know, I've never been on a Clint Eastwood set, but Clint, very, very reserved. Michael is a drill sergeant. He's motherfucker, get this shit done.
And that's pretty well known in the community up there that he runs a pretty tight show. Yeah. Whereas Clint speaks softly and he doesn't want to say it twice.
He doesn't want to.
He doesn't have to say it twice.
And I think I've said it to you before, Chris. I just, my love of 80s and 90s hair metal, which I'm tying this into something. I think I've told you, but do you know what was the first thing Michael Bay did? Like one of the first things was the Slaughter Up All Night video.
No shit. That was
which is why I want to get Mark Slaughter on the podcast at some point.
Michael probably tries to forget that.
Because I have a friendship with Mark, but I haven't spoken to him in a while, but I've always been like, I want to get him on to talk about like Michael Bay 1990. But I do know we have to wrap up because I know, Chris, you got some things to do. But the last thing I wanted to ask was just since you can't talk about the upcoming project, do you have like a latest book you want to get out there? Because you have a number of great books that people have to check out. I'm working on a book right now on the Second Amendment that I should have finished, but it seems like all these legal cases keep coming up and it's in flux. So I'm personally working on a book on the Second Amendment and why I think the Second Amendment has become the most important probably amendment in the Constitution right now, because if you see all the things that we've seen with loss of rights during the COVID era, and I'm not once again being political, I'm just saying, look, at some point in time, you got to realize the Second Amendment is the only thing that holds the rest of the Constitution together. I mean, in my opinion, so I'm working on that. And then, I'm basically, playing the Hollywood game right now, and that'll be coming out pretty quick, but I'm happy with life, and my kids are healthy. I'm healthy. The people around me are doing well. And so, isn't that what it's all about? Isn't that what it's all about? Is that, you can say, we're through this dark era, hopefully, in this where everything is shut down, and maybe we learn some lessons, I hope, as a nation as to what our rights really represent and really mean to us. And I'm just hoping that, that America goes through a revival, which I know we can, and we move forward to the next stage of this country, because I'm done with all of the backbiting and the infighting and the bullshit that's gone on. I want to move this country towards what I know it really is.
And that's just, maybe that's going back at full circle, going back to old school stuff, going back to the G.I. Joe as heroes.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. And I'd like when to get you back on, bro, because you mentioned something I think is very important. And, this fatherhood and talking about fatherhood, and maybe what you saw even with Chris's and his father, because I know he loved from what I understand, he was a very good father and loved his kids.
Dad yesterday. I actually talked to him yesterday. It's funny because I woke up in the morning. I said, I want to get a hold of Wayne, and because cool. I love the guy. He's a really good guy.
And I'd love to have you back. Well, we will whenever your whatever project it is comes out, we'll get you back on. But and get into the fatherhood aspect, because it's something I did want to talk about with Chris too, and his. But let's do it for another time, because honestly, this is where I have fatherhood stuff to do today, and that's more important.
And that's the priority, man. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, well
Ian,
said, guys.
Ian, good to see you, man. I love it. Let's do it. Let's catch up sometime. I'll be in New York before too long, and I'll give you a ring.
We'll do it. We could do something in studio, maybe. So actually I have something in studio coming up, which I'll mention as we wrap up here. But ScottMcEwen.com, at Scott McEwen author on Instagram, and not 1 week from now, but 2 weeks from now, Chris won't be on, but I will be in studio with Richard Osthoff, the Navy veteran who my congressman, George Santos, allegedly stole $3,000 from, in a charity that was supposed to help his dog. More recently, right around here, the North Shore Animal League has given Richard a new dog, but it was cool because Richard's been on every news show. And when I called him, he was like, let's do this in studio, because I think Richard feels like he goes on these news shows, just like you guys know, they give him 5 minutes. And I want to hear Richard's whole story. I want to hear about, at least allegedly, I have to say, there's been no trial, but allegedly this scumbag congressman who has lied about everything, screwing over a veteran out of $3,000. So I look forward to meeting Richard in studio in person, and it's the first in studio episode I'm doing in a while. But then next week, Chris and I have an amazing guest as well. So a lot of great stuff coming up. Casey Kennedy next week.
Yeah,
Cool.
good to see you, Chris. Good to see you,
You
man.
too, brother. I hope we're
Good
running.
work, guys. Great job.
We'll break bread one of these days, brother. We'll come across and
Anytime
have
you're out here, in the West Coast, truly give me a call. So
I will.
Let's go out.
Oh, you're in because every once in a while I'll go visit Rosecrans. I just was there last month. I go visit Ty every once in a while when I'm in
Give me a
town.
call. I'll pick you up at the airport and we'll go up there.
Gotcha. God bless, brother. Take care.
That's all for this episode of the Battle Line Podcast, but we'll be back on Monday with more American Straight Talk. Until then, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Battle Line Podcast and on Twitter at Battle Line Pod. To sign up for future Battle Line tactical courses, go to www.christantoparanto.net. Believe in yourself, face all challenges head on, and as always, never quit.